sometimes you just have to say it, right? You just say it. Florida Governor Rick Scott is now officially a killer. A killer. You could call him even a murderer. And Charlene Dill is one of his victims. Charlene Dill was a hardworking Florida woman who moved down to Florida when she was just 18 years old to help make ends meet. She worked at various fast food restaurants at Disney World. She cleaned houses. She babysat. As the years went by, she found herself as a single mother struggling to raise 3 children. Last year, Charlene made just $11,000 cleaning houses and babysitting. She used that money to help put food on the table for her children and to put a roof over their heads. Then Charlene discovered she had a severe heart problem that needed to be managed. And she couldn't afford to get it treated right because she didn't have health insurance. Turns out Charlene fell into what's called the red state donut hole created by Republican lawmakers like Rick Scott. It says that if you make over $5,400 a year and less than $11,400 a year, you get no health insurance. Below the $5,400 a year, Charlene would have qualified for Florida's pretty pathetic Medicaid program. Over $11,400 a year, she would have qualified for free health insurance under Obamacare because of the subsidies for low-income people. But because she earned over only $11,000, she made $400 too little to qualify for Obamacare, but about $5,000 too much to qualify for Florida Medicaid. This isn't, of course, how the Obamacare law was written. But this giant Swiss cheese hole was drilled into Obamacare by John Roberts when the Supreme Court said that states could refuse to take federal money to pay to cover people who didn't earn enough to qualify for insurance subsidies, but make more than state Medicaid programs will cover. And it was into that hole, that red state Republican donut hole, that Charlene fell. 23 states, which are either controlled by a Republican governor or a Republican legislature, have refused to expand Medicaid coverage to their citizens under Obamacare. This is pure politics. It's an effort to sabotage Obamacare by cutting the working poor out of the program. Republicans are hoping that working poor people like Charlene will be so upset that they can't get Obamacare and won't realize that it was the Republican governors who refused their eligibility, that those poor working people will be so angry with Obama and the Democrats that they'll vote Republican in 2014 and 2016. This is all about politics. These states and these Republican politicians are literally playing politics with people's lives, and Charlene is one of the people they've now killed. Dead. John Roberts, you have blood on your hands. Rick Scott, you have blood on your hands. Around 5 million Americans won't have access to health care in this year because they fall into the red state donut hole just like Charlene. Since she didn't have insurance, Charlene couldn't afford a regular doctor or regular treatment. In 2012, she went to an emergency room because of a flare-up with her heart. Doctors told her there to start taking medicine and to be routinely monitored, but she couldn't afford it because she only made $11,000 a year and had to feed 3 kids. And Rick Scott would not let her have the free health insurance that working poor people in every democratically controlled state in America already have. Rick Scott, the guy who was the head of the company that it was found guilty of the largest Medicare fraud in the history of America at the time, Governor Rick Scott, Republican governor of Florida, Rick Scott, was willing to let Charlene Dill die so that he could score political points against President Obama. Back in December, Charlene went back to the emergency room, this time because of abscesses in her legs. Shortly after that trip to the ER, she picked up another job as a vacuum cleaner saleswoman on top of babysitting and on top of house cleaning to help provide for her family and to pay for her ER bills, which were stacking up and weren't covered because Rick Scott and the Florida Republicans refused to let the federal government pay for her Medicare. This last Friday, 5 days ago, Charlene was supposed to go see one of her close friends so their children could play together. She never made it to her friend's house. She died during one of her vacuum cleaner sales appointments that day. This hardworking, loving, single mother of 3 young children was just 32 years old. Charlene died because multimillionaire Republican and Florida Governor Rick Scott chose to play politics rather than protect the lives of the Florida citizens he is supposed to be serving. Rick Scott, you are guilty of murder. You should be prosecuted. You should see the inside of one of the death cells in your state that you are sending people to every day for crimes far less egregious than this. But unfortunately, if Republicans across the country continue playing politics of people's lives, Charlene is not going to be the only one to die. A recent study by researchers at Harvard University and the University of New York found that as many as 17,000 Americans will be murdered by Republicans as the direct result of Republican states refusing to expand Medicaid under Obamacare. We should call these Republicans what they are, killers. Samuel Dickman, one of the authors of the study, told Morning Call, quote, "The results were sobering. Political decisions have consequences, some of them lethal." Republicans like Rick Scott don't give a rat's ass that their political decisions have life and death consequences. Consequences like 3 young children losing their mother. You think Rick Scott's going to go to the funeral? You think Rick Scott is going to pay for raising these 3 young kids? Give me a break. Rick Scott is a sociopath who doesn't give a damn. He just wants to smear Obama. He doesn't care who dies, just so long as it's working poor people and not one of his rich buddies. But enough is enough. Some things are more important than politics, and life is certainly one of them. Republicans say they're pro-life, but that's a bald-faced lie because they refuse to let low-wage working Americans have access to life-saving Medicaid. If Rick Scott and his Republican buddies in the Florida legislature are really the Christians they claim they are, read Matthew 25. If these guys really are the Christians they claim they are, they're going to burn in hell, and deservedly so. And to those of you watching the program in Florida, you might want to call the governor's office and ask how Rick Scott feels about having killed Charlene Dill. Now, to give Rick Scott some small measure of credit, he actually originally suggested that his state expand Medicaid. And then the Republican legislature said, no, we won't do it. And then he said, okay, cool, no, we won't do it. And that's his official position now. So you might also want to call your Republican state senator and state representative and ask how they feel about having blood on their hands. Charlene Dill's blood. What are they going to say to her 3 young children who are now without a mother? Come on, Republicans. Feel free to call into the program. You Republican cowards. You Republican coward state senators and state representatives down there in Florida, and not just Florida, almost 30 other states. You Republican cowards, I dare any of you to call this program and tell me why, any rational reason why Charlene Dill had to die. You cowards are going to burn in hell if you actually believe that there is such a place. It will be waiting for you. 15 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Yeah, it's real easy to talk about states' rights and, Paul Ryan. People have to have the work ethic. They need to come on. Cowards!